Hey, everybody. Okay, so as promised, I'm here with my partner Abel, and we are going to do a Q&A. And I know he has a whole lot to say before we begin, so I'm going to give him the floor, and then I'll pick up where he left off. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Carrie Polaro. Um, Hi, my name is Abel Calderon, and I this is the first ever uh, live or video that Carrie and I have done. So I'm honored and excited to be able to share some of my perspective. One of the requests that I made from Carrie before we got started is that I do, as an attorney, one, and also just being in relationship and seeing so much content online and things like that, I just wanted to, put three things out there as kind of a disclaimer, just so that whoever listens to this conversation and this perspective that Carrie and I are engaging in uses it in a way that's going to forward them. So the first one is number one, the ideas and the comments and the perspectives that Carrie and I, in particular with me, that I'm going to share are my personal experiences and perspectives, right? I wouldn't want for anybody to imagine that this is like if there was like a right or wrong or a particular way that this is it, no matter what. Absolutely not. I My experience is that we're all in the growing process and in the learning and there's so many dynamics and circumstances that relate to every particular situation and every relationship, so everyone should take this with a grain of salt. I i personally feel that maybe the most productive way to use what we have to say as something that's going to forward you is really to incorporate it, um, sit with it, with whatever we offer in this conversation, and really ask, how can I, use this to better my relationship? And it really comes from a place of like, how can I? Like, in other words, it's my responsibility first. So I feel that if anyone who listens to this takes that perspective, you know, um, that it's like a gift, and unless you incorporate it and use it, you're not gonna be able to make the most out of it. Um, so that's the first thing. The second one is please, 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 whatever I say, again, it is simply information, my perspective. At this particular point in time, who knows, in a week from now, I might change my opinion, right? But don't take this as a hammer or or something to beat somebody across the head with. It's like, you should be doing this, and you're not doing that. um Definitely criticism doesn't work. Even in asking, like, one of the things that Carrie now has grown into, and that word is specific, right? Grown into is her appreciation for spirituality, and in particular, my faith is Catholic, right? And her appreciation, or at the very least, to be open to attending certain events that are Catholic based or Christian based. I know that if I would have been at the beginning of the relationship, if you don't go to this, it would have been a turnoff, right? So, um, I've always been clear that for me, my faith has been important, and whether or not Carrie chooses to go or doesn't choose to go, I go because I want to for myself. And if it matters to me, and she, you've Carrie have seen how much it matters to me, then it's like, you know what? If this is something that matters to him, then let me go check it out. Right. And the same applies to exercise, right? Both you and I have a very clear understanding of exercise being important. So we both have our ways, and if you force me to go exercise the way you exercise, which you've offered, I'm a hell's no for that, right? So, and at the same time, it still doesn't undermine the fact that I prefer cardio, and I prefer to go walk and I prefer to go run. And sometimes I'll do weights, right? But it's not going to be at the same level that you do it. So, so that's the second request. It's like, please, don't use this as a hammer, or this conversation that we're having as a hammer, to criticize or critique or in any way put anybody down for where the relationship is. If anything, um, as I indicated before, like, who can I be? How can I incorporate this and become that person such that then my partner is like, hey, you know what? I care so much about you. And if this really matters to you, then I'll, I'm willing to learn more about it because of you, not because of the thing. Right. And that's how you invite people to your, your side. Right. And the last thing is, I apologize for being passionate at the beginning. Sometimes it might sound like I'm angry or just upset, but really, there's certain things that, I mean, my personality is, I just tend to be a little bit more passionate about things. So sometimes the volume goes up, but it doesn't mean I'm angry. Um, that's it. I'm complete.
Awesome. Thank you. And, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here today and always showing up with presence and just for being the kind of man who makes it easy to soften and feel safe. I'm so grateful for you, not just in our relationship, but for the way you're willing to pour into others as well. And when I get questions all the time about how we handle certain things and about how we've met, and I really thought this was just going to be a beautiful addition to this last workshop of allowing people to finally ask all of the questions that they want. And what was so funny is I received a lot more questions than I really anticipated. So we have a lot of questions to cover, and let's just go ahead and get into it. Let's see. So the first question I have for you is, let me find them all here. Okay. People they always asking me about how we met. Now, I always give my version, but no one has heard your version. And that was one of the questions that I received was, we want to hear Abel's perspective on how you guys met, because we always hear your story, Carrie, but and I don't know if people just don't believe me how it really happened. But yeah, why don't you give your take, your version of how we met?
Well, I've heard you tell the version, and I mean, it's accurate. Um, we were both in part of a program that is personal development and leadership. But we were on two different tracks, in other words, two different teams. And I started my team development, which is the 4-month program, right? And the last part of it, I started it probably a month or two before you started your program. So we and on top of that, we were completely virtual. So the possibility that we were ever going to meet in person was just highly unlikely, right? It was right after COVID in 2020. And, I was actually getting ready to graduate from our program. And my my position in the particular personal development arena at that particular time was more of a senior leader, right? And it was your first time, so you were a participant. Um, but even within the context of the training, there were opportunities to add on to our experience, right? And one of the things that just coincidentally we both added to our personal development journey was a course about, creating your romantic formula, right? And it, it was, I think what, to be honest, what enrolled me into adding this is that it was literally only like half a day, right? So it wasn't like a commitment of a whole weekend or anything. It was just a couple of hours, and plus it was virtual and it was supposed to be quick and easy. So I signed up for it and you signed up for it. And we both attended this, online course by one of the trainers, Mary Jo, who is, has become like a really great friend for both of us. Even without the course, like we both know her from just being in her space and different courses that we've taken. Um, but yeah, we were both in this training, and I don't know. There was about what 80 people, or somewhere around there between 80 to 120 people that were part of this training. And randomly, Mary Jo put us in a small group together. Right. So there was about six of us in a small group. And one of the exercises, the very first exercise was imagine that you are on a date with this person who's in front of you, right? And they're going to answer a prompt, and it's your gift to them to tell them why you would or would not continue to date them, right? So one person got the spotlight on Zoom, right? And then they answered the question, and then the rest of the five of us gave kind of their feedback, or kind of, the just how we felt from the response. So I don't recall what the specific question was, but it was something about like, how I would be on a date or something. And yeah, I mean, I remember that your response was very calculated, and there was a you were trying to like put up a front, and this image, and it just felt very inauthentic, initially, like with the response. I was just like, oh yeah, this is like such a canned response. Um, and and at the same time, like your way of being at the time reminded me, the only way that I understood and I could empathize with your response was because I've I thought of myself and I'm like, oh man, I've been that person where, it's like, oh, I can pretend to be authentic, but I'm really holding back, right? But in my mind, I think that I'm really, really good at it, even though like it's like crystal clear. You're not coming in like 100% authentic. So yeah, I mean, I pretty much told you that, and everybody gave you feedback, and people were like, well, I just feel like you, um, you're very nice, but maybe if you opened up a little bit more, right? Or there was one girl who was like, no, I think, the way you showed up was okay. And I'm like, yeah, she she probably has the same thing, right? Super defensive. And so yeah, when it was my turn, I'm like, well, I'll be honest with you. I absolutely would not date you again. My experience is that um, you have a lot of walls that anybody who's on a date with you needs to overcome. And I recall that I specifically told you it would be so exhausting to try and get over all your hoops and obstacles to be able to get to the real you, right? And by that time, I would be so exhausted. I don't know that I'd still want to. Um, and also, I think that the other one that I said was, I feel that a person who dates you is set up to lose. You don't set men up to win. You move the goalposts, and even if the guy was to figure out your game, you would change the rules. So, yeah, I mean, that's my experience of what I sense from the response that I got. And and and, and you were just like, Like, whoa, like, oh my God. Like, this is the first time I met this guy, and he kind of read me like a book. But like I said, I feel that I 100% saw the things you were doing because I've been that person as well. So, yeah, eventually the thing was over. I absolutely forgot. I'm like, oh, okay, we finished this thing, and they gave us homework. Mary Jo gave us homework, and I was gonna do it on my own. And then you reached out to me and you're like, hey, could we be buddies? And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, oh my goodness. Do you, I don't even remember this girl. I mean, I know she was in my small group, but I was just like, okay, fine. Um,
I remember you telling me that later that you didn't notice me. And I was like, oh, yeah, I had my hair in a bun and glasses on. And like, I did not want to be noticed.
yeah, no makeup at all, for
Nope,
sure.
none.
No makeup. Like the camera was super way back. Like you had the camera way up there for yeah, we kept on talking for approximately what, like 2 months. And after 2 months, I'm like, okay, I don't think this is about the homework anymore. I think
Yeah.
there might be something here, and I recall that, I was the one that brought it up,
Hmm.
and said, hey, um, I think there might be something more here, but I need you to be honest with me. Are you developing like any feelings? Because I am. And if you're open to that, then we should explore that instead of pretending that this is just like a homework thing, right? And kind of just delaying, or prolonging something that really isn't. Yeah, I think looking back at it, we definitely were both kind of like, oh, I don't want to be the first one. It's almost
Yeah,
like we're 13 years old.
it
Like, I
was.
don't I don't want to be the first one to let her know that I like her. So anyways, it's just funny.
Yeah, that was funny. It was so true. Um, and it was kind of intimidating because of the distance. And that was something that someone had asked was, well, what made you both want to pursue each other, being that it was like so far away?
So to be honest, my experience of what worked was that when we had conversations, I felt that because we were on the phone, you know, and to be fair, Carrie, I have been in this work, of just personal growth and in the practice, and really I say that specifically in the practice of, letting go of my guard and really just showing up authentically as much as possible and being like, hey, this is who I am, this is my personality. I really don't have anything to hide,
Mhm.
and I my experience of myself is that having been in the role that I was in my particular group, in my particular LP, as a captain, of course, like the requirement to be at that level and be at a practice where it's like I'm I'm not putting up that front anymore. Like I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't need it. Like I get to just be this way, authentic all the time and let people feel who I am. So I felt that when I showed up to our phone calls in that particular way, there were a couple of factors that supported you. Number one, you felt that authenticity on the phone.
Mhm.
And number two, because we were on the phone, like it probably gave you more permission to be like, oh, okay, he doesn't see me. He doesn't know what I look like, right? I'm all the way in Florida, so he can't hurt me physically. Like he doesn't know where I live. So there was this quote unquote safety that you felt by talking on the phone that slowly you allowed me to get to know you um, in a way that you maybe hadn't allowed anybody else for a very long time. So that genuine discovery that occurred that wasn't colored or affected by in person, I I'm clear that like that practice of those phone calls and those conversations that we had allowed us to get to know each other like in a very unique way where had we gone on a physical date, I don't know. I don't know what would happen. Like I don't know that we would have given each other the opportunity of a second date, you know,
Hmm.
considering where we were at. Or maybe you wouldn't. You would have been like, "Oh no, no. Like this guy's attracted to me." Like you told your dad. It's like, "Dad, I just don't want guys to be attracted to me physically. I mean, I want them to like me, but I just don't want them to be like wanting to have sex with me." And it's just like, well, so what? You just want to be friends, you know? Right? So yeah, there was a lot of I think there was just a lot of fear that you were holding on to, but yeah, I mean, it really it was set up in a way that you could win. If you had to look back at it, Carrie,
Yeah, it really was.
that game was set up in a way that it set you up to win and it set us up to win, and you didn't even know that that's what you needed. That's the crazy thing.
Oh, absolutely. And that's so funny because someone had even asked, how did you guys build trust without physically being together all the time? Like, how did that work? Um, and I think it was the consistent phone calls. And a lot of people don't know this, but we had a consistent time. There, I had a scheduled time in the day that I was allowed to call him, and we would talk during that time because of his work schedule. And we would just we got to know each other over the phone. And sometimes we would do Zoom, but it was actually more often than not, it was phone calls. And it was this comfort level of, yeah, you're right. Like, you can't see me and you're so far away. And I can just be who I am and not really feel like I'm being judged, because if I am, it doesn't matter. I don't really have to talk to you again. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to call you again. You're so far away. It was a very different energy. And you are correct talking about fear. And I think this goes into like, when I was saying not wanting anyone to be attracted to me, to my dad, there was this fear of, oh my God, like that's all, someone's just going to like me, not for who I truly am, but for what I can do for them or what I look like. And that's not the type of relationship that I wanted. Knowing that, and then of course I had my guard up, and I'm very protective. I wanted to protect myself, but that doesn't work. And it's unattractive, honestly. I mean,
Well, yeah. Well, it's so to be clear, correction, right? It's not that it's unattractive. It's so your fear. It's not that it's unattractive. It's just that what it does, it prevents you from receiving love and affection, right?
yeah.
Because if you're attached to fear, then you're not going to, it's like if you're like this with a fist holding on to fear, then you're incapable of allowing love or affection, right, to come into your life. So for as much as any person wants to pour love or affection, your fear, if that's what you're committed to, then it's going to be greater and you're going to be right.
Mhm.
And you can burn and go down in flames with your perspective that I need to hold on to this fear to protect me. And yeah, and you're gonna be alone. Right. But then you start criticizing yourself. It's like, well, how come I'm alone? It's like, well, look at your fist, right? You're holding on to fear.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really like important piece to bring up, was when I'm leading with fear, I'm going to get the very thing I'm afraid of, rather than when I'm leading with authenticity and with love, then that's what I'm going to receive. And the fear is like I'm incapable of receiving because I'm so afraid of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's two options. One, the fear either keeps you right
Hmm.
or it keeps you alone.
Yeah,
Right. So
100%.
either either the fear causes men to not care, right? And then that causes you more pain, right? And then your fear is kind of reassured, right? Or you're alone, right? And then your fear of, oh, I'm alone, right? But like the fear takes up so many pieces. Like fearful of, being hurt, right? So then I invite that at some level, right? Or I'm fearful of being alone, and then I create that at some level, by holding on to fear, where it's like, well, I want love and affection. It's like, okay, well, how can I create that? Right? It's not by holding on to fear.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Yeah, and I think that was a thing that was, like, such a big learning for me. It was my ability to create whatever I'm thinking, because I'm
Hmm.
projecting that out into the world. And I think that's a really big, component that goes in to how we show up in relationships. Um, and I was also asked what made this relationship different from ones in the past. For me, it was because we approached it completely differently. Like, I got to know you completely different. We had many, many conversations. I didn't feel any kind of pressure there. I just felt completely safe. So I guess first answer that question, because there's another one following that.
Okay. So, and I'm glad that they asked this question because this is something that I wanted to speak into as well. I want to be clear that Carrie, you came in with your, yeah, I mean, for just for conversation purposes, quote unquote baggage, right? And your big concern going into any relationship is, at least, looking back, my experience of what I felt the fear was more about is I don't want to be treated like an object and only be with somebody who is not going to value me, for everything that I am, right? So sexually only, like to be used as an object, right? I think
Mhm.
that was your biggest fear, at least my perspective. And at the same time, like, so that was what you came into, and I also had my own baggage that I came in with, and my baggage was in essence almost your own fear, right? Because I was also at that time, physical beauty was something that was a trait that was extremely important to me at the time. Like somebody needed to be extremely attractive or like, yeah, like I look back and actually my sister was the one that told me, he's like, Abel, you have this perspective of reality that physical beauty actually means something. And it doesn't. Like it has zero correlation to a woman's values. Um, it has nothing to do with whether or not she's loyal or anything, right? It's almost like a trait, like just like somebody has red hair and black hair, and it's like, would you say that you know a particular shade of pigment on somebody's head determines their morals or their values? It's like, no, it doesn't make sense. So I sat with that and I thought it was so brilliant, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So looking back, I also admit, like, what worked in us getting to know each other was the fact that I had zero interest in meeting you physically. Like, there was no interest in me meeting you physically. Like, there was no urge of like, oh my God, I need to get to know, like, I need to see her because, um, like, I want to explore the sexual aspect of the relationship first or now. Um, and I think that that was like super beneficial for me. For both of us at some level, right? That
Mhm.
we didn't really engage in any physical activity because, at least for me, like there was zero desire because I didn't even remember what you looked like. I just remember it's like, oh, there was this girl, and
With her hair in a bun and no makeup.
yeah, and she clearly didn't make an impression because I don't even remember her, right? I just know that she's part of this group, and you know, just from a place of generosity, if she wants to do homework with me, then you know, I need to do my homework, so I might as well do it with somebody. And we just kept talking like that. But it was interesting how I had like even for like the first month, 30 days, we were talking already for maybe 5 or 6 times, and it didn't even dawn on me like, hey, you know, what does she look like? Or go on her Instagram. It wasn't until like I finally asked you, it's like, hey, are you interested in something more than just like homework, like actually getting to know each other, dating and stuff like that? And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should see what she looks like. Yeah, and then I went online and I'm like, oh, okay. She's into fitness, and you know, she has a nice figure, and she's relatively attractive, based on her photos. I don't know. I haven't seen her in person, so it was really like a blind date at some level, other than the fact that, there was some level of trust now, and it's like, okay, we trust that the conversations that we have, which I feel are authentic, that they really were, right?
Yeah.
And then we met in person.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it's hard to judge someone when you meet them on Zoom because, like, I thought you were like way taller than me. And then
Yeah.
I remember when I pulled up at the airport and you like got in my truck, I was like, "Oh my God, I think we're the same
Yeah.
height."
Yeah, we're absolutely. Yeah, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know you love guys your height." And it's like, "No, no. No, I don't." It was awesome.
Oh my God, yeah, that really was awesome. Um, okay, so we have a few more questions about like us. Okay, what does what does Carrie do that helps you open up emotionally? Maybe I think that's a way of being. But so the question reads, what does Carrie do that helps you open up emotionally?
One of the practices that you have learned, and of course this is based on my personality,
Yeah.
right? Is is able in a space where he is even open to opening up, right? So, uh I think, trial and error, right? There's a lot of things that you've done that has not worked, right? And it's just like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. Like it doesn't work first thing in the morning, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely it doesn't work. It doesn't work when I am 100% like in a litigation, right? Coming out of some kind of argument, um, uh, at work, and then it's like, "Oh, Abel, you want to open up?" It's like, "No, this is the worst time." Right? But you've had to learn that, right? Through
Yes,
trial
I
and
did.
error. It's not like I came with a manual and be like, "Oh, these are the times never to talk to me." Right? So you've had to learn that. Definitely what works is, y- you know, your intuition, I expect that every woman's intuition is like 99% spot on, right? So you notice my body language, you notice my demeanor, um, and you're like, okay, now, right? So, yeah, what works is when you can gauge that I am in a neutral or like in a joyful state. Those states are more likely for me, give me the capacity to receive love and affection. And I don't know that you have the ability to get me there, right? I feel that it's more supportive if I'm already there, or making a request. It's like if you have something that you want to do, then let me know communication of what your desires are,
Hmm.
and then allowing me the space to be able to get from like high stress down to neutral to be
Hmm.
like, okay, because that's how I set you up to win, right? So, like, you set me up to win by communicating what you want. Give me the space because I know myself better than you do to get myself there, right? And then you can come in and be like, okay, now I can get you to where I want you to be emotionally, right? In terms of like affectionate, whatever, right? But you trying to make it happen for me, like when I'm already high stressed, it's just not gonna win. It's a formula you can't win.
Well, and I think there's this misconception too that people think I can make this person become this way, and that is not true at all. And I just hear so many times my clients are like, "Well, I'm trying to make him be this way," and I'm like, he's not going to be the way that you want him to be. You get to work with what you got. And I agree with what you said, like making the request, like that's something new for me. I never gave myself permission to make a request. I always in the past I had just counted that out of, well, I'm not allowed to make a request. But making a request has been like such an eye opener for me because it's not my responsibility to get you like emotionally prepped for a conversation, right? Like I can't do that. I'm not God. But I can make the request of, hey, this is what I'm looking to create, or I'm looking to have some kind of a conversation with you. When would be a good time for you? And that gives you the time, the space to let me know. It's not about having instant gratification. It's not about forcing it right away. I mean, it's not like I think one big thing I got to learn for myself was just because I'm ready to talk about it doesn't mean that it's urgent for other people and that they're ready. And so there's a lot of like give and take there.
Yeah.
Just,
All right. Another thing that comes up is, you know, there's two core, at least for us, or for myself, that I feel are important: safety and honesty.
yes.
Right. So it's my responsibility, as a man to make sure that I'm clear. Number one, I need to admit to myself that safety and honesty matter to me. Right. And for as strong or masculine or whatever it is that, image that I portray, even as an attorney, sometimes I come off as cold and calculated, or some people would imagine that attorneys are cold and calculated, right? There's still this need in relationship for there to be safety and honesty with my partner, right? And even in any relationship, at work, like with my business partners or with my employees, right? Or at home, like with my mom and my parents, um, safety and honesty are like fundamental to me having the courage to be honest, right? And in the same way, like I believe it's fundamental for women to like recognize that safety and honesty are core environments that are required for them to grow their relationship, right? And if they're not creating safety for themselves, and if they're not creating honesty for themselves, and such that they communicate that or engage in it where they can communicate to their partner, hey, by the way, like I feel safe to let you know what I want, and I want to be honest about it, right? And let you know, like that sets men up to win. Where if women just stay quiet, oh, then it's feedback that they're not safe and they're not being honest, right? If a woman isn't communicating to a man like, this is what I want, this is what I need, like I want us to be more romantic, or I want us to go out on a date, or I want us to have a dinner, right? Then a woman who doesn't voice what she wants is not in a place where she feels safe and honest. And it's not necessarily the guy's fault. I think that's important to also like speak into. It's the fact that she hasn't created a place for herself in her relationship such that she feels safe and honest. Like what has her not make that request of safety and honesty?
Yeah, and that, I mean, that goes both ways, of course.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important for people to understand is that, yeah, I have, and I mean, down to something so simple like, and I'm going to use this as an example because I know my clients love examples. The other day we made arrangements. I was going to get up in the morning and go walking with you, and you had set your alarm and I set my alarm. My alarm went off before yours. I didn't feel like getting up. You told me you wanted to sleep in. In my mind, I thought that meant I want to sleep in. Like, we're not going to go walk. That meant you wanted to sleep in for 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden you were up and ready to go. Now, I already have an expectation that we're not going anywhere. And now you want to get up so in my head immediately I was like, what the hell? Now all of a sudden he's changing the plans. And my mind started going and then I was like, "Oh, this is so interesting that I'm creating frustration and anger that's not there, but I'm creating it because I'm making up a story of and building a resentment towards you. And had I not been honest with in the moment of what that was happening, then I could have caused a fight and we could have been pissed off and not gone on the walk together. Do you know what I mean? I mean, and I know that sounds like a silly example, but that's how simple and easy it can be. If you honestly think about how often people have these little disagreements, and it can really come down to did I start that? Because I really just wasn't being honest with me and I just wanted to pick a fight with somebody.
Yeah. And honestly, Carrie, like thank you so much for sharing that particular example because it reiterates the point that I made earlier, where it's like it's my responsibility to like be urgent and clear that safety and honesty need to be created by me, and that it because when you were creating that story, you clearly were safe and right, there was no like, oh, even though I was getting ready and going on my walk, and I was gonna go, like you don't have to come with me, right? So it's not like I was making you wrong, right? You want to stay in bed, you can stay in bed, right? But I know that going for the morning exercise in the morning like matters to me, so I'm gonna go do it regardless. If you want to come with me, great. Um, but the fact that you were tired and you're like, I want to sleep in. Oh, but then I also want to go with Abel. And you were already like generating this drama, right, in your internal body of being like, oh, what do I do now? I'm torn. I want, right? So, and that's a human experience. Like you're not the only one. I'm sure it happens to every single woman that's out there. It happens with every single man that's out there, right? And and yeah, because there was a miscommunication. Right, but there's also like this part of us that wants to blame the other person because it's like you didn't set me up to win or you could have prepared me better. And it's like, okay, well, in the scope of all possibilities, maybe, but we're here now. Are you gonna get up or not?
Yeah, and it's funny because like all of this was happening so quickly in the morning, like in the event, and you didn't know this until today. And as I'm saying this out loud to him today, I've never shared this with him because it was just going through my head, and I was just like, oh, I mean, you can be in the blame or you can be honest with yourself. What you're really trying to shift the responsibility of working out is very important to you, and you kind of want an excuse not to today. And if you don't go, you're going to make it mean something about yourself, and you know that. So it's so much easier to blame somebody else rather than blame yourself. It was so quick, but it was like, yeah, wow, like how how many arguments have I started because of stuff like that? That was the big aha moment for me the other day. Was oh wow, this is what a huge opportunity that I was able to catch it and see all of it at the same time.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
congratulations. Um, yeah, like it's such a great example. And to be honest, it's important to speak into the fact that it's the practice of the practice that gets you to, you know, uh, a lucidity that you have of being like, oh, yeah, I'm just real like if I'm honest with myself, I'm really just tired
Yeah.
and I want to sleep in. But I know that I told Abel that I would go, and there's a part of me that does want to go, even though that I'm tired, right? So at that point, it's a choice. It's like, okay, do I want to stay in bed or do I want to go, right? And then you choose, right? You choose what matters most. Um, and in your particular situation, you chose to get up, right? And even though it doesn't mean like you weren't going to be tired anyways, and you weren't going to be upset, right? You were probably still, but you're like, and the cool thing is, once you were 5 minutes in outside, right, you were glad that you did it.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Because deep down, I know that just starting my day with physical activity works for me. And so that's just because I know that. That's something that gets to be consistent in my daily activity, period. And I also know that when I don't start my day with physical activity, then it just kind of snowballs and I don't start the day off in a good mindset. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's one because it was much more important to me. And plus I had made a commitment. So it was about staying in integrity to the commitment and also, hey, this is good for you.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. That was great.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Um, okay. Now we're going to get into some other questions. What would you say to a woman who, from a man's perspective, what would you say to a woman who feels like she has to prove her worth to be chosen? The whole pick me energy. Because I think
Um,
that some women don't know that you can see that or feel that you guys can feel that.
so, there's a couple of things that come up for me. Um, I think the main feeling that runs through my body when I hear, I want to be seen or valued or chosen. Um, the question or the request wouldn't be made if the holder of the question was 100% enrolled in their value. So my personal impression is that it speaks more to that there may be a disconnect in that individual acknowledging their own value such that they need someone to acknowledge it. Um,
So share if you have any specific examples from me. I don't know if you have any specific examples, but I want to say in the beginning there was a lot of that, a lot of proving energy going on.
so I'll give you the example. Um, I remember that you specifically were like when we started dating, there were a lot of requests that were made that you were requesting not because you wanted that particular thing, but because there was this perception in your mind that if you had the thing, that it would create some kind of security,
Okay.
right? So for example, again, like that's why I said, Carrie, like a woman who who requests or demands to be chosen, it, it is more about like I fear that what I have to offer isn't enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if it were enough, then it would be irrational not to be chosen, right? And so there's two parts to it. Number one, to know that you're enough.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, to be around people that are going to value what you have to offer, right? So that there's no doubt,
Right.
right? And if you have that combination of being clear about the value and that you're offering the very best that you have to offer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that you're offering it to somebody who's going to value it, and that you're clear that that person has the ability to value it, then that's like the perfect couple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it, like I use every word I use is specific. Like the couple is to bring together two pieces, right? It's like enough and somebody who can value it, and then it's like a perfect couple. Um, so I remember we were having a conversation because security at the beginning of our relationship was such a big story that you had. Like, if I have security, therefore it means that Abel, I don't know, is not gonna leave. I'll be safe. Like this thing about security in your mind, like you wanted to create all these pieces of the puzzle of security, and it's like the saying that it's like, well, the only really secure place is a prison, right? And is that where you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
Um, where what you really wanted is you wanted to be loved and appreciated in a way that is communicated to you authentically,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the conversation that we had is you're like, I want to be the most important woman in your life. And I
I
remember,
remember this.
yeah, I remember. I'm like, well, Carrie, I'm letting you know right now, it's not going to be you, right? 100%. Like, you're not going to be the most important woman in my life. You just aren't. Um, and I remember you felt like I think I offended you, or you felt offended, or like it definitely wasn't the response that you wanted. Like I think that you were expecting for me to just roll over and be like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, like whatever you want." And yeah, and it was clear to me that that was a request. Number one, that was unreasonable, and number two, that I couldn't give you. Right? And then, you got upset, and then I provided you with the explanation. And after you sat with kind of the reasons, you realize it's like, oh, maybe the request is irrational. And I think once you once you were willing to look at the request from a perspective of like, number one, am I requesting something that I really want? And number two, is like, why am I making the request? Like, what's the end goal? Like, what is it that I really want? So for your listeners, I told Carrie, um, number one, Carrie, the most important woman in my life, number one is going to be, I mean, the most important thing in my life ever is God. Like,
Mm-hmm.
God is the number one thing in my life. So you're never going to take the place of God. Like, I'm just letting you know, ever. It's not going to happen. Uh, yeah, it's like it's irrational. So God will always be number one. And the second most important, you know, people in my life, or the woman in my life, is gonna be my mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my family. Like, my mom and my parents are fundamentally going to be the most important people in my life. Now it's not on a tier like one, two, three, right? But it's
Right.
more like in a sphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like these are the things that I care most about. And what I'm willing to offer you, Carrie, with all my heart, is that you could be included in what matters to me most.
Mm-hmm.
which is God, family, and you could be part of that, of the people that I care about, the people, you could be equal to them.
Mhm.
I go, but you're never going to be the most important. You just aren't. And it took you a while. Like you weren't, it's not like, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No, you were resistant to that. Yeah, you're like, oh, hold on, let me sit with that. I'll get back to you. And I'm like, well,
I
good
did. I
luck.
did.
Yeah, good luck with that, because that's the way that I operate. And if you can't accept equality, right? Which is like, that's life. Everything is equal versus I want to be the most important. It's like, well, good luck with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, or exactly what you were saying. In my mind, I had this whole hierarchy uh, um, of people, and really, what I it's that goes back to comparison, right? Like comparison, and then that's the root. If I keep that story alive, then that's the root that actually keeps alive this greater than, less than conversation with everybody. And then I'm constantly in judgment. So for you to present that whole idea of like equality was like a new concept for me. It took me a hot minute. Got to reach out for some coaching on that one. And then it made sense. Well, because the other individual delivered it in such a way that I was like, oh, okay, I can I can work with that. Like that makes sense to me. But yeah, there was like in my mind there was this whole like hierarchy of how it should be or how it should look. And that's another thing that I want to address too is that there is this misconception watching TV, watching movies, uh, soap operas, whatever the hell y'all watch. Relationships get to work for you and they don't have to look a particular way. Like they don't have to work, they don't have to look a particular way at all. You get to create your own relationship and the things that work between you and your partner, um, if it works for you guys, then go for it. And if it doesn't work, then don't do it. But it doesn't have it's not like the movies. And I think that's one thing that I definitely wanted to bring up because people had been people ask me all kinds of things and I'm like, man, I think if I when I share with people that we have a very similar structure of communication, like from when I lived in Florida and you lived here, like, I do only get to talk to you a little bit a day because you work a lot. And I think, and people are like, that's absurd. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, I mean, at the same time, I get to respect the fact that you've created a particular like lifestyle for yourself. And that's something that's really important to you. Your work is important to you, and I get to respect that, period. Just like, me getting up and going and doing my workouts or my coaching or anything like that, you respect that as well.
Yeah. I mean, yes. And the metaphor of exercise is such a great metaphor because it's so neutral and people understand it a little bit better,
Yeah.
but look, Carrie, you have a certain routine. You've had your routine of exercise and workouts for over 20 years, right? If I was all of a sudden to come in and say, you know what, Carrie, stop doing weights, right? And stop eating the way that you eat. Because you're in a relationship with me now we're gonna eat hamburgers and pizza all day long, and our only exercise is breathing. We'll
Just
just do breathing exercises, right? And I heard that if you keep doing, USA exercises, that you can lose weight that way, right? That like people would be like, "Oh yeah," and you want her to have the same body and you want her to, maintain the same physical appearance. It doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, it's the same thing. Like, the type of industry that I'm in, the type of hours that are required, uh, you assimilate to the environment, knowing that you're coming in 20 years after, right? In the same way that I'm coming in 20 years after your own practice. And how can I assimilate to your practice versus
hmm
trying to change your practice,
hmm
right? And then expect the same results, right? Because it's like, Well, I want able to spend more time with me, but I still want him to earn the same amount of income and be able to generate the same amount of hours. Well, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Right. I think one of the big lessons that I've learned in relationship is acceptance. But it starts with acceptance of me and where I'm at, and then I accept someone else where they're at. And there is no perfect person. People are not going to show up perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to the original question, what I would offer is this. If I am honest that I am offering the very best, that is the only security that I can realistically hold on to because it's authentic to me. So me knowing that I offered the very best in a particular instance, and that I'm authentic about that, right? Like whatever it is, the affection, or in this moment, like whatever, whoever that lady who is like, I want to be chosen. It's like if you offered your very best self, your heart, your affection, your creativity, like you didn't hold anything back, and the person didn't choose you, quote unquote, then maybe it wasn't you. Maybe who you're offering to isn't seeing the value of it, right? And I feel that, sometimes in relationship or in dating, sometimes we give to people that aren't ready to receive. Right? There's people that are still dealing with, like, imagine, Carrie, if I went on a date with you like now, right, with the Carrie that showed up in that, you know, uh initial um training with Mary Jo, and we would have gone on that first date, right? I don't know that you would have been ready for me at that point in time.
Yeah.
And if you would have said, you know what, it's not going to work out, you're just not the person for me, right? I could create a story. It's like, oh my God, she didn't choose me, right? Where it's like, no, I'm clear about my value.
Hmm.
I'm clear what I had to offer. I'm clear about, you know, um, what's available with me. And if she can't see it, then yeah, that's on her. So that's the way I would respond to that.
And what do you think, from a man's perspective, what makes a woman feel like the prize?
Well, what it takes is it takes the partner to communicate that to her,
Hmm.
right? And that's really the statement. Like my partner communicates the fact that he or she values me. And
And I think
how I do that, I can communicate in various ways, physically,
that's what,
with a gift, so it really is communication that I see you and I see your value and I appreciate it.
yeah, I wanted to address that it doesn't have to be words. sometimes we get attached to that. Like I want to hear the words of affirmation. Like, that's my love language. Um,
Mhm.
I think you knew that before I did. That words
Yeah.
of affirmation were important to me. And
Well, I figured it out, but yes.
that's not the way that you show love. Um, and I think that took a hot minute to recognize that everyone shows love differently. And just because someone isn't going to show you love in the way that you want to receive it does not mean that they do not love you. You really get to expand your vision in what you're looking at to see what are the ways that how do they show up and show me love. It's not really for me to ask you to change.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and like I said, I mean, communication can be so many different ways, right?
Mm,
Words or acts of service or, gifts, right? But fundamentally the rule is it's how do I have another person feel that I love and appreciate them? Communicate it
yeah, absolutely.
in some way and preferably in their language, right?
Yeah, preferably. But it's not necessary.
Yeah, correct.
Um, how do you believe women could soften without without losing their power? How can they soften themselves?
It even the just don't worry about what it looks like,
Mhm.
right? Just express yourself or what your intention is, right? Don't get lost in the mechanics of it. Um, just if you want to express love and affection, then do it in the way that feels authentic to yourself. That's it,
Mhm.
right? It's not rocket science. It really just is be honest, feel safe, and go ahead and communicate. That's it. Um, yeah, I'm complete.
What is one thing that women think men care about that men actually don't care about at all?
Um, well, what's one thing? Hmm.
One thing that women think men care about, and we find out they really don't. They make a big deal. What do women make a big deal out of that men are like, huh?
So women are very detailed focused and women get think that men are more concerned about the details than the substance. And and yes, it's true that we can appreciate details, but sometimes there's so much focus on the details that then nothing gets done or delayed, right? And the whole purpose of the thing gets lost, right? So yeah, that would be it. It's like, yes, I mean details are important, but when details become more than the thing, then it doesn't make sense.
So essentially, what you're saying is when we're trying to give you information, just land the plane.
Yeah, absolutely. you
Give the
know.
specifics. We don't need a whole lot of adjectives and descriptions and
Yeah, or like for example, if a woman wants to create like I want my man to feel important,
mhm.
right? So she plans like, let me go get him flowers and chocolates and this and that and all these things, right? Because for a woman, like the more senses that we stimulate, the better the experience,
Yes.
right? But like if the guy is coming home tired and hungry and the only thing he wants to do is eat and sit down, for the love of God, don't prolong the whole experience like an hour before the guy can sit down and actually put something in his stomach. Like, feed the guy, you know, handle his hunger needs first, right? Because that's urgency. And if he's tired, have him sit down, and then you can bring all the stuff, right? So it's not that all these other details don't matter. It's just that maybe the order of it, like, be mindful that, you know, primal things are fundamentally like urgent, right? So hunger, rest, uh, sex, right? Like those are the things that matter just fundamentally first, right? And in the details of like, um, what does the air smell like? Are there flowers in the room? Like things like that aren't just gonna have the same weight where for a woman they might.
That makes sense. What is what is something that I do in our relationship that makes you feel safe and respected? Safe or respected?
You've learned to respect and honor my boundaries. Like certain requests that I've made, you you've learned to respect them, right? And it hasn't always been the case, Carrie,
Mhm.
right? So it's not like, oh, I made a request and you're like, okay, that matters to him. No, I my experience is that women test whether a man's boundaries are real boundaries, right? And
Give an example to follow this so that
so, for example, when you moved here, to Sacramento and we were living together, all of a sudden, yeah, like you said earlier, there was this expectation that, we were going to be talking all the time and that, every single day we'd be having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, all of us, we'd be in each other's space the whole time. And I'm just like, bro, like, when am I going to work? Like, and I'm still expected to, yeah, and I
mm,
still want you to generate the same amount of income, and I still want you to put the same amount of hours in your work, and I still want to be able to take the same, amount of like trips and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, that's not going to be possible. And
yeah.
I'm clear, like my responsibilities in terms of financial responsibilities matter. So I I need to, like disconnect. So um yeah, and it took about a year. Easy. It took
Mhm.
about a year for us to be able to kind of get the dynamic to a place where you didn't feel like he's I'm not the most important girl in the world, and he's making work more important than me. And it's like, well, no, no, that's a story.
Yeah. I think it was about, like, letting go of it taking it personal. It's
Yeah.
not personal. If you could teach women one thing about, dating a high quality man or a high value man, what would that be? Or if there was a piece of wisdom you could share with them?
Well, this goes both ways. Um, it's 100% my responsibility to be clear about the values that I bring into any relationship, right? So I my experience of myself is that if I consider myself a high value man because the level of what I bring in terms of a work ethic, um, provider, um, spirituality, like everything that I bring, I my my standard is at a level of excellence, right? And my expectation is that if you're choosing to be part of the world that I've created for myself, right, you will play at this level as well. Right. So that standard I chose into. And any woman who wants a man to play at her level has to have that standard for herself.
Hmm.
So really what it is, it's like I need to be clear about the values that matter to me. I need to be incorporating those at a particular level, right? And then men who are willing to play at that level will either be a match or will not be a match,
Right.
right? But in the same way that I can't expect a high level woman to be attracted to me, right? If I don't have that standard, a man is not going to be attracted to a woman who is not playing, at a high level either. And nobody's going to save anybody, right? Nobody wants to be in a relationship where it's like, oh, well, I'll become that way once. Like that doesn't work.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I would offer. Like all of us are 100% responsible for creating the life we want. And if I'm clear about the values and that matter to me, then I need to practice them in my life first before I can expect that somebody else is going to value what I value. Right. And to be fair, Carrie, like there are certain values that you've had to grow into,
Hmm.
right? Because they mattered so much to me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Right. So the only reason why you were able to rise up to the level that I'm at, right, in terms of certain spiritual practices or personal development or things like that, is because I was already at that standard, right? And I wasn't willing to compromise to go lower. It's like, no, no, no. Like, I'm clear that these standards are fundamental to maintaining my emotional, spiritual, physical health, right? And if you're not going to support them, then it's not going to be a match.
Yes, and I remember you've made that comment a couple of times about like, hey, we do this together because it's a partnership. And I was like, okay, cool, fair enough. Yeah. And sometimes you get to spell that out to people.
Yeah.
So, do you ever feel intimidated by my independence?
Oh, no. Um, there is there's trust that exists that doesn't allow for anything else. Right. So when there is 100% trust in, and it's not to say that my trust is any security, right? The trust is given to you and you have the freedom to do whatever you want with it in the
Hmm.
same way that the trust is given to me. Uh, and, and is it possible that, you know, uh, I could break the trust? Absolutely. right? But does that mean that now you have permission to not trust? Like as soon as you choose not to trust, then you're allowing the not trust to come in, whatever
Hmm.
that is. Like
Right.
it's either trust or not trust. And not trust could be an infinite number of things: fear, doubt, jealousy, right? So either you trust 100%, so nothing else can be in your cup, or you don't. So yeah, like your independence is just, I trust. I trust that you're clear about what you want. I trust that you're going to be responsible, and that's it. Like there isn't room for anything else. And
Cool.
your responsibility to prove me wrong.
Okay, well, I know we only have a few more minutes, so I want to go over a couple more of these. What's something that you've learned to love about what's something that you've learned about love from me that you never knew before?
I've learned that my values and my responsibilities cannot be conditional or dependent on your feelings. Like
Oh, I think you need to expand on that because this is a good one.
I, as a man, like I need to be clear about, and I say this because it cuts both ways. Like everything that I say is a woman's responsibility as well. So
Correct.
I cannot like allow my mind or my heart or my values to be dependent on whether or not I feel like you're affectionate or you're in love or you're not mad at me or whatever. Like
Right.
it's irrelevant.
Right.
Like my standard of living, my values, what I choose to be in terms of um, staying committed, being responsible, like all that, all those choices and the values, and me continuing to work and me being a provider and me continuing to show up in this relationship is irrelevant of whether or not you're affectionate that day, whether or not you're happy, whether or not you're not mad at me or you're not having a bad day. Like all that doesn't matter. Like
Hmm.
I get to show up regardless, right? And the faith and the trust is that eventually your feelings that are incongruent with what I'm offering and not valuing that will pass. And then eventually you get to a place like, oh, I do love and appreciate Abel. And it's like me trusting that my consistency and staying consistent with my values and my standard of living is enough, is all that matters. Right. And it really ties back to that one question, like, how can I be chosen? It's like, I'm clear about my value and what I'm offering. And either you choose into it or you choose out. Right. But you choosing
Hmm.
in and out is irrelevant to me because this is my standard of living.
And okay, so this is another, and I think that actually kind of hit in another question that someone was going to ask. How do you stay intentional and keep the relationship growing? And I think you kind of answered that question already with exactly what you said, was just being consistent. And because, yes, feelings and emotions are going to pass, they're going to flow and come and go. Um, and I say it all the time, feelings aren't facts.
Yeah.
So that's definitely helps. Um, what else there was? Oh, and I want to hit this because this is a topic that is huge with some of my clients. How did you handle it in the beginning when You were trying to plan something, but I wanted to try to hijack it and plan everything. How did we move past that piece? Because that was a problem for a hot minute.
So, I mean, look, Carrie, it was a problem, but it really wasn't. I think it was only a problem if I allowed it to be a problem, and I feel that when very early in our relationship, I understood that most of the things that you were doing were habits for security.
Hmm.
And and then it became clear, it's like, oh my goodness, you know, I I was able to in our conversations, like I did there were moments where I felt that there was a genuine desire for you to feel affection. Like I knew that that's what you wanted. And whenever you engaged in some activity that was incongruent with that, then it's just like, oh, okay, this is her nerding out. Like this is her, um, like her nervous system being like, oh my God, I'm scared, or I need to know what's going on because I'm scared, or I need to know what's going on because it creates the security, right? like like when we went to Ultra, it's like, okay, I need to know the plan. I need to where I'm gonna be at. I need to know the Airbnb address. I need to know the location that we're staying at because if something goes wrong, I have an exit plan,
Yes, I remember that conversation.
right? And when you understand that the only reason you did that was because you were scared, right? But then you still went to eat. You still went to Ultra,
Hmm.
right? So it just means it's like, okay, so she really does want to give it a shot, but there's just this wiring that is still very real. And yeah, I just need to allow her the ability to be able to experience both. Like eventually I had to know, like I just knew, I knew that there had to come a point in time where you either were willing to choose into the relationship or you were going to hold on to your story,
Hmm.
and the only thing I could offer you is like, I'm just going to offer you what I have to offer. I'm clear that it's valuable and you can either choose into it or not, but there wasn't the like, and to be fair, there was a point in time, Carrie, in my youth where I was more concerned about, like, maybe had we dated in my 20s, I would have been like, oh, no, no, like, Carrie, please, like, where I would have been trying to like force you to stay, right? And if you look back at, from a place of just being honest, right? Whenever you're unclear, like in the past, when you've been unclear about whether or not you've really valued your past relationship, and a guy has tried to force you to value it, it actually does the opposite. Like it forces you out, right? Because the choice needs to be yours,
Hmm.
right? And I believe that that was a difference here where, I really wasn't attached to like, oh no, Carrie needs to, choose me. And it's like, okay, well, um, you can choose to stay or you can choose to leave. Uh, but that confidence in myself, dude, like I'm 50 this year, right? So we started dating what 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Like I was in my
Hmm.
40s, there's
Hmm.
no way that I could have done that in my 20s.
Yeah.
I was very, I also wanted to be like you, where it's like, um, very attached. I want her to like me, I want to feel important and versus clear. So I think that's a distinction. Like before, the validation came from outside, right? And I felt that, oh, if this person gives me love and affection, it's going to make me feel important, right? Where now it's like, no, like I offer my love and affection. I'm clear it's enough. And are you clear? Right. And if it's enough for you, like if this is what you want and this fills your cup, like the way I offer my love and affection, then it's a match. And if it doesn't, then it's not a match.
Hmm.
So I think that's a difference. So for that person, it's like how um fundamentally the clarity needs to be within, right? So me being clear that what I have to offer is enough and I am enough and I'm offering my very best and I'm clear about that, right? And if the person sees it, then awesome. Then keep pouring. And if there's doubt about whether or not your partner uh from a place of being genuine and also like I said, I need to be sure that I'm offering my very best. So if I'm holding back, that's not my very best.
Hmm.
All right. So but if I am offering my very best and it's not enough, then it's like, okay, well, um, is this serving me? So yeah, I'm complete.
And how do you keep polarity alive? Well, it says, I'm sorry, I didn't finish that. How do you keep polarity alive while also being equals, remaining eh, being equals in the relationship?
So the clarity of my values
Hmm.
for myself is what creates the polarity. Me being crystal clear about what matters to me as a man,
Hmm.
crystal clear about my values, crystal clear about what I am doing and how I am being and what I'm practicing on my daily to keep my values vibrant, alive, fire, like my values being like vibrant and burning, right? When I'm clear about what matters to me and what I'm doing to maintain that, that's what creates polarity. What allows a surrender is when I put my heart at the center of it
Hmm.
because my heart is what allows the surrender to it, right? Because the values are the structure, but placing my heart like at the foot of those values is the authenticity that creates the safety and the trust that the feminine is willing to surrender to it. Because there's nothing more to offer than that.
Hmm.
It's like when you offer your heart, you offer everything.
Yeah. And this goes into the one of the last questions is what does it look like for a man to lead in the relationship without being controlling? I don't think a man truly leading in the relationship is controlling. But I can see it. So when I read that question, I immediately was like, "Oh, clearly a woman wrote this question," because I would always perceive it as men leading is trying to control me because I was so used to leading. And then you come together in partnership and then it's just like, "Oh, I'm." someone else can do all this part. Like I don't have to do all of this. I don't have to like run the show here. That's in a way very relieving. I think it's about perspective for me anyway. Moving in with you and allowing you to make choice. Like I remember asking you a lot when we would do trips, and I still do to a degree. You know, I like information. Information makes me feel safe. So you give me enough, and I'm good with that. But I've had to learn that because, and I've had to learn to trust that you're going to provide me with the information that I need to get through whatever we're going to get through. Um, and
So
and that
here's
good.
my perspective, Carrie. A woman or a person who feels that they're being controlled is somebody who genuinely doesn't trust in the leader.
Yeah.
So, the one statement that you made is absolutely, Carrie. What you had to learn was to trust.
Yes. 100%.
That's it, period. Like, and not to trust in like, oh, give me a little bit. No, like core, core practice, like honest goodness truth is there was a lack of trust, period, in your relationship dynamics with men
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
that did not work across the board,
Yeah.
right? Down from like, and just being completely honest, down from your dad to your last relationship, like just constant examples of I cannot trust, I cannot trust, I cannot trust. And so you have this pattern of not trusting, and then a guy comes in, whoever it is, saying, "Hey, I want to take you here." And you're like, "Oh, are you kidding? I don't trust you. I don't trust you can get me there. I don't trust that what you're telling me is going to be real,
Hmm.
right? And I don't even trust that whatever you're going to create is going to be like love and affection. That's going to be authentic. I just don't trust it." Right? So the first thing was to choose to trust that it was possible to love again,
Yeah.
right? And then from there, it was just baby steps after that.
Yeah. I like your explanation with that because I think that, and as long as I had that thought of, oh my God, I'm trying to, or someone's trying to control me, like there was no way that was going to work. Then it's just going to be like this, like butting heads the entire time. So I think that that was a huge obstacle that I got to get over.
Yeah. And I mean, there's definitely what's supportive to trust, respect, honesty, congruency, um, authenticity, communication, right? So there's all these ingredients that add to having trust become solid, like so solid that you can walk on it, that you can surrender to it, right? And any of those lack of those things like chip at the integrity of what trust can be, right? When there's lack of congruency, lack of honesty, lack of communication. And so then it becomes more difficult to trust and resentment, right? Um, so anyone, if any of your listeners are questioning, you know, I feel anything but trust, then I would ask, it's like, okay, where is there resentment? Where is there lack of congruency? Where is there lack of communication? Where is there lack of honesty? Right, such that the seeds of lack of trust are starting to like crack your trust. Because if there's trust, that's it. Like, think about it. If I told you, Carrie, we're gonna go to Disneyland, and it's like, okay, I trust you. you're not gonna be questioning, how come we're going here? Is this the exit? Is this the exit? Is this the exit? Is this the exit? It's like, I know how to get to Disneyland from Sacramento. Just trust me, right? And that's it.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, what's your favorite version of me to be around?
Favorite version?
Version, like if I'm being playful or if I'm like in like boss babe mode or you know what I mean?
Well, definitely not Boss Babe. Um,
If I'm in workout mode or, if I'm like wanting to cuddle.
so, there was a comment that I made when we were first dating that I offered you. I'm like, you know what, Carrie? Fundamentally, a woman wants to be loved and appreciated,
Mhm.
and she wants for a man to care and support the things that she cares about. Like, th- like those are the golden rules,
Right.
right? One, to feel loved and appreciated, and the way that I have her feel loved and appreciated is to love and support the things she cares about. That's it.
Mhm.
It's not rocket science, right? The question is, how do I do that responsibly? And
Mhm.
at the same time, maintain my own value system and stay congruent. Um, so it's similar, for men. Like, men want to feel loved and appreciated,
Mhm.
and we want a woman to love and support the things we care about, right? And the way that I, so one of the ways that you showed up that, if there was a mode, um, I didn't even spend that much time with you, but the way that you loved and appreciated and took care of um my mom and my aunt, when we were at Dominican Republic, and supported me and taking care of them and taking them we walked with them whenever we'd go eat. We took them to the pool together. Like, their mobility is not the best, so we supported them and just getting ready, and everything took, you know, instead of being 15 minutes, it took an hour, right, to go from one place to the next. Uh, but yeah, you showing up in a way that love and supported, the way that was just really kind and compassionate to my mom and my aunt. Yeah, that that was that was very heartwarming. It was um yeah, like words can't even express. It meant a lot. It meant a lot to me. So you've been in service, probably the mode.
Service
The
mode. Okay.
service mode.
Okay. And I think that's
Which makes sense because that's by far my
your love
strongest love
language.
language. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your strongest love language. Okay, so I have two more questions. So, what is something so random? What is something that Carrie does that drives you crazy or drives you a little crazy, but you secretly love it?
Mhm. Oh, wow. Um, Wanting to know what our next thing is. Like, what's going on next month? It's like, geez, we haven't even done the week yet. Like, you're already thinking 4 months ahead. Uh, but for as frustrating as it is, it allows me to plan, and kind of stay on track with certain responsibilities. Sometimes I forget that, there's things that are coming up. So, you thinking ahead, kind of forces me to be like, oh yeah, I forgot, I need to plan for that. And definitely like organization and planning are your fortes a lot better than I am. So uh, you being in support in that way, uh, like secretly, I appreciate it. I don't know that I love it, but I do appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll take that. And if you and this will be our final question, if you were to leave um, everyone with like a piece of wisdom that you think would support a woman to know about a man, and it can be anything. Like maybe how she shows up, like what does magnetic look like for you? But like what is a piece of wisdom that you have found is very important for women, a piece of knowledge that they should know?
So I I know that every single one of us has the ability to express affection, and we know when it's authentic and when it's not authentic, and my experience is that, and this is something that happened to us, Carrie. I was waiting and you were waiting for the other person to show up in a particular way, or
Yeah,
let their guard down in a particular way, or like, well, when that person tells me he loves me, then I'm gonna tell him he loves me, right? And nobody wanted to say anything. Um, and we were just like in the waiting game.
yeah.
So the sooner that either one has the courage to just be honest and authentic with each other, it's like the faster you can start creating the relationship that you want, right? The more that I delay, you know, because I want to protect myself, or because I am waiting for something else, then all I'm doing is I'm really just sabotaging what I have in front of me, right? So I would just encourage, it's like, if I'm the type of person who I want to have a loving relationship, then how can I create that? And how can I offer my very best? Like, this is what I have. This is what I put everything on the table, right? And it makes the most sense. It's like, offer your very best, so that way you can determine whether the person is the one that is going to value it, right? And it doesn't diminish or devalue what I have to. In fact, it makes it even better, right? So just offer your very best, offer my very best in every moment, and the person will let me know by their actions, by the way they show up, whether they value it or not. And if they value it, then keep pouring, right? And if they don't value it, then yeah, I get to like really assess whether this is the environment that I want to be in.
And I want to add to that too, because I think it's really important to recognize that when we're in a situation like that where or maybe we're unhappy with um, the way things look in the relationship, that it's just a reflection of how I'm showing up. And that's the truth of all of it. What that's me being honest with me. If I'm unhappy in the relationship, it's a reflection of how I'm showing up. And in order for that to change, I get to take radical responsibility of that and show up differently.
Yeah.
And so I think, and the reason I bring this up is because I have multiple clients that will say, well, I'm unhappy about this thing in my relationship. We'll go change it. If you're unhappy, then change the dynamic. It's just reflecting back to you. That's the easiest way for me to know where I'm at in the relationship is if I'm feeling feelings of unhappiness, then oh cool, let me. It's not the other person. It, I think that's one key thing that I really want to stress to people is like it's never the other person. It's always me. I'm always the answer.
Yeah. And, what I'll add to that is that, you know, when when I identify the lack or I experience the unhappiness, um, the first question is y- to be clear about what it is that what the lack is, right? So lack of affection, what am I experiencing? And what is it that I would want, right? And from there, rather than criticize, is how can I inspire? How can I create? Right? But not just create from a place of like, oh, it's my responsibility because it it doesn't always feel like love and affection isn't always found in responsibility necessarily, but it can be found in inspiration. So I would offer that to it's like, how can I inspire the other person to want what I want? Right. And the approach of how I manage things of the heart and become that type of fluent person in speaking of it and engaging in it and developing, I feel that women have the ability to be in their feelings and their emotions and generate feelings and emotions. Like their ability to be fluent in that language, it it seems like it's more natural to them than guys who want to fix things, right? So yeah, like set men up to win.
Hmm.
Um, but it will take first honesty from the woman's side to be clear about what it is she wants. And if there's resentment, if there is hurt, if there are any things that need to be cleaned up and let go and forgiven to allow the guy to show up differently again, then that's where the work is, not necessarily changing the guy, but letting go of the sadness and the resentment and the hurt that is poisoning or stagnating the growth of the relationship, because that happens a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, on both sides. I can see that on both sides for sure. Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest things is like being clear on, am I carrying any resentment like with myself?
Mhm.
I mean, because that's you saw earlier when I was sharing that story how easy it was for me to create a resentment because I didn't want to be mad at me. I want to create it with you. And most of the time, that's what I find is happening is I'm not wanting to create the resentment within myself, right? So I want to create it against you or against someone else, and always cleaning that piece up
Yeah,
because I can't inspire from there when I'm angry and frustrated.
exactly. Anything else?
That is it. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you answered all of the questions, so thank you so much for staying longer and being thorough with your explanations.
Oh, you're welcome.
All
I
right.
hope it supports your audience.
Yeah, this was really great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a great night.
Bye.
Okay.